find online, and we don't want to make them wait. So we will, I don't know, review this for people who are stuck in Bombay traffic, but that's fine. Welcome, thank you for coming this morning. I think it's great to see everyone out here on early on a Saturday to talk about college essays. And I think this is a really, for those of you who are in grade 11 or at the beginning of your grade 12 and you have to apply to college this year, it's really time for you, if you haven't already, to start thinking about the college essay writing process. Because if you haven't started already, you're getting late because there's a lot to do. So I'm just gonna jump in and get started and talk about what all that is, what exactly that is. Okay. So first I want to just tell you a little about the Red Pen. We are a education consultancy based in Mumbai. We've been in operation for the past 11 years. And we have, these are some of the statistics that represent, the success of our applicants and the strength of our team. And we have developed an expertise in helping students prepare for applications across in higher education across the world. So not just the US or the UK, but everywhere. So that's us. And also not just every place, but also every kind of course. So whether it's medicine, whether it's art history, whether it's film, whatever it is. So that's what we do. And we also do this at all levels of education. So all the way from pre-college advising, that is, planning ahead, preparing from an early age, or boarding and day school, undergraduate studies, MBA, admissions, postgraduate, and institutional support, which means that we are counselors in several schools, and we give them the support they need for their students. So that's a little about the Red Pen, and if anyone has questions after the session, we have a lot of Red Pen team members here to answer your questions and help you understand what we do and how we support applicants in the process. Those of you who are online, is that better? The chat has been disabled on this webinar, but you can ask questions in the Q&A section. And I'm just making sure I got that right, but I think I did. Okay, so we will try to address some of those questions in the Q&A if they're posted in the box. Okay, so what we're going to cover today are these topics: college essay basics. What is a college essay? Why are we even talking about this? Different countries and the different essay requirements. The US, we're going to go into depth because it's a pretty complex process, all the different kinds of essays that are required. Indian liberal arts college application essays, what are those? And then just other tips and tricks and do's and don'ts. We are going to cover several countries, so as we go through this, you'll get a sense of US, UK, Canada, and Indian liberal arts. And if you have questions about any other colleges, we're happy to answer that as well. Other countries, we're happy to answer that as well. Okay, so moving ahead, what are college application essays, right? So they're a big piece of what college admissions officers, who you'll hear me refer to in this presentation as AOs, but they're a big piece of what college admissions officers are looking at in your application. This is how the application process works in different countries. Different pieces of this are sort of bigger and smaller, but overall, the admissions committee can see all of these parts of you, technically. So your resume, your personal data, that is, where are you from, what's your citizenship, etc. Your transcripts and your test scores, so how strong is your academic data, your extracurricular and activity list, and then your essays are a part of this, but they're not the whole thing. So remember that all these other things also matter. And then of course your letters of recommendation, which are an external or a third party assessment of you or introduction to you. And so all these things kind of come together in an admissions office and an admissions committee review to help the college decide if you're the right fit or you're a student that they're interested in. So the essays are a big piece of this, and bigger and smaller in different countries, but it's not that they're the only part. And it's also not that they're not a part. So there's something that you really need to balance with all the other aspects of the application process. So one of the things, this is sort of, we just kind of like to point out to students, what is the essay? What is it? What is it and what is it not? So it's a part of the application that's in your control. You can, all the things in the application are technically in your control, but some of them are past. Like you can't change your grades from 10th. You can't change, the teachers you had for your recommendation. You can't change a lot of things about your application at the time of application, but you can control the essays at the time of application. So it's your opportunity to really let the admissions committee know who you are, what kind of a person you are, what you're bringing to the experience on the campus. One of the things I think I sort of hinted at this earlier, it is just a part of the application. It cannot, if your essay is amazing and you're the best writer, or you somehow invest all your time in the essay, but your grades are weak and you don't have good test scores and your teachers don't like you, it's not going to make up for that, right? So all of those things, all the pieces have to come together. It's not that the essays can stand on their own and get you into college, okay? And then the last thing is, the way I kind of try to explain it to students is that the essay is, you can give me your resume and I can read it, but I don't know anything about why you did these things, what kind of a person you are, who influenced you to do them. Have you taken personal initiative to do them? Has no one influenced you? Like how did you get all of these things on your resume? So the essay is the thing that you can kind of use to connect the dots to those things. I am a sort of national level tennis player because my grandfather was, and that's a legacy that is important to me to carry on. Or I started playing chess because it was the best way for me to interact with my little brother. Or I became a guitarist because there wasn't one in my school, and I love to contribute and sort of get involved and fill in where there's a need. So there's a lot of reasons why you might get involved in something, and the essay is an opportunity to kind of help the admissions committee see that. All right, so this is just an overview of the different countries, some of which we'll talk about today, and the essays that are required for them. So as you can see, the UK, there's one personal statement that all the universities see, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail. But you can see here, if you are really averse to essays, you don't want to write many, the UK might be a good choice for you. And similarly with some of these other countries that have more simple essay processes. And even with Canada, it looks like there are 3 things here, but actually there's, a university-specific essay, program-specific, but those aren't always required, and there's a lot of ifs and buts in the Canadian process. But as you can see, the US is the most complex. There's a lot of essay parts and pieces in the US application process. And the Common App is the most popular platform that people use to apply to colleges in the US, so I think that's why it's in red. But these other applications are there as well, and they also have an essay that you have to write. College supplements, that is, each and every college has their own questions that they want you to answer. University of California is a completely separate application that has 4 separate essays, and then scholarships or particular majors might require another essay. So the point is just that, in the US you get a very there's a lot of essay requirements, and they tend to be very diverse and different. So I'm going to talk about them in more depth right now. So depending on the colleges that you select, will depend on how many essays you have to write, okay? So the Common Application essay is there for many of the colleges. Okay, yeah, the Common Application is there for many of the college. It's a 650-word essay that, and there's 7 topics, and you choose one and you write 650 words on it. And most of the colleges that are on the Common App will see it. Colleges that do not use the Common App, or you have to apply to in some other way, will not see this essay. Majority of the colleges are on the Common App, so this is an essay that everyone will see. So that's the first step in the US process. Then you have essays like the Why College essay, or why do you want to study this major in our college? Then you have other supplemental essays that can just be 50 word or 50 character questions. I mean, really short ones, like what short takes, what's your favorite song or movie? What's your, what 3 words describe you? So those are very, very short, and some colleges have those, but every college doesn't have this same essays. Every college has different essays, I guess is what I mean to say. And here you can see, that if you're applying to Stanford, there are 11 additional essays. Some are 250 words, some are 50 words, some are short, some are long, and that's Stanford. But then if you look at University of Pennsylvania, they have 2 essays, and they're each about, I think, 300 or 200 words. And then if you're applying to Northeastern, they have no essays. So the only thing you'd have to submit for Northeastern is the Common App essay. So my point is just that it's very complex, and you have to kind of keep track of how many essays you have to write. And it tends to end up being a lot if you're applying to, say, 10 to 12 colleges, and each one has on average 2 essays, then you're talking about 20 to 24 essays plus the Common App. And it can end up being a lot more than that if you get into like the short questions and things. So that's that's kind of what I want to just kind of highlight here is that it's complicated, it's different for every college, so you really need to track this carefully for the US process. Okay, and so we suggest to a lot of students, at the very beginning, once you choose your colleges, make a big spreadsheet, and we do this for the students we work with, make a big spreadsheet, understand what essays are required, figure out, where the topics are common, where you can use a similar content for different essays. It can become a really big project, how many essays you have to write and which ones are similar. Moving on to just kind of having done all of that work, you might think, okay, I've done so much essay work. This is the most important thing. This is the thing that admissions officers are going to spend the most time on and that they care about the most. But actually what you can see here is that in the admissions process, this is an example of a University of Pennsylvania admissions officer who reads essays for South Asia. So in a single admission cycle, this person might review 2,000 applications and end up reading this many essays. I'm not going to add it all up, but lots and lots of essays, and with this many words. And the approximate amount of time they might spend on your essay is about 90 seconds. After you've spent probably 90 days crafting and perfecting this essay, it really gets very little attention. But what that tells you is not that it's not important, but that it needs to make an impact in 90 seconds. Your essay needs to be so sort of polished and put together in such a way that a person can read it in that little amount of time and say, okay, yes, I want to admit this student, or yes, I understand this student in a way that makes me want to know more, or something like that. It cannot be, oh my God, I have 90 seconds and this essay is confusing. I don't know what this kid is talking about. Okay, I'm just moving on to the next one. That's not the person you want to be in those 90 seconds, okay? So it's really important to make sure that you can make your impact, get your kind of soundbite through in that. Okay, so talking about the Common App essay, the personal mission, if you're applying to colleges in the Common App, all of them see this one essay. So you cannot write in this essay about a particular college or a particular part of the country you want to be in or anything like that. You need to talk in a more general sense about yourself. So this is a personal essay. When you see the 7 prompts, I'm not going to read them out today, but they're questions that talk about a challenge you faced, or talk about something that is so important that that's a part of your story. So I'm part of your story that your story would be incomplete without it, right? So tell us something about you and what is personal. So what's important in this essay is understanding what kind of a person you are. And I think I mentioned that lots of kids play soccer, play chess, whatever. Why do you do it? What motivates you? And it may be about an extracurricular activity, or it may not. But we want to see from whatever story you tell, who are you? What kind of a person are you? So here's some examples. I'm a compassionate problem solver. I never give up. I used to be meek, but I've learned to stand up and speak up. So these are kinds of messages and messaging that can come across in the personal statement that help an admissions team know who you are as a person. And when it comes to accomplishments, what we find is a lot of students are like, I've done all these things, I want to put them all in my Common App essay. But actually, that's not really what the Common App essay is for. That information is captured in many other parts of the application. And as I said, I showed you that whole sort of list of things that are seen in the application. And the admissions officers may spend, 90 seconds on your essay, but they may spend, 5 minutes on your activity list. So make sure your activity list is as strong as your essays. And that's where all these achievements, accomplishments, awards, honors, all of those things go in there. They don't need to go in your Common App essay. So remember that the Common App essay really needs to be an opportunity for you to really let the admissions committees know who you are as a person, and help them they know their university, they know the kind of students they're looking for, and they want to understand from that essay, are you the kind of person that they're looking for? So there's, to an extent, you need to be yourself, but you need to also understand, what might a college, what might be positive or qualities that different colleges are looking for, and can communicate those. So when it comes to themes, so each essay, everybody has a story, right? I can tell you a story about how I, went to Starbucks this morning and got coffee and came back here and gave it to my team members who had asked for it. But that's a pretty simple story of what happened. It's very descriptive, right? But what is the theme of that story? The theme might be, kindness or sharing or maybe collaboration or team spirit. I don't know. But there needs to be a theme in the story. So once you decide on the story, you have to figure out what's the theme. And the story part of what happened, I went to Starbucks, and the why does it matter is because it demonstrates the kind of person I am when I'm working with the team, okay? So these are questions you have to ask of the stories that you want to tell in your Common App essay. And here's an example, besides my amazing example about Starbucks, but what happened, I started the first ever LGBTQ society in my school. I did this because I was bullied in my previous school, so I decided to change schools and begin something new. So that's what happened to the student. Why does it matter? Because I'm a problem solver and I care about the well-being of other people. So that's what you want to demonstrate in the essay once you've sort of figured out what the topic is and what the theme of that topic is. And here's another example. While canvassing for SNAP, I was concerned that I would unfairly judge someone or offend them by giving them information about food stamps. This caused me to freeze up, but when I stopped worrying, I was able to hand out information. So why does this story matter? Right? We all have hundreds of stories, like I said, in our daily lives, or a big story about, work, a big project that you've worked on, whatever it is. Why does each and every story matter? Why do you want to tell it? Okay, I want to tell this story because it shows that when I encounter moments that challenge and confuse me, I'm able to understand why I'm uncomfortable, come up with and execute a solution and learn from it. So I'm trying to demonstrate that in this story, because if I just and so here's kind of the steps to follow to get there. So again, brainstorm ideas. That is, what are all the stories I have to tell? What are some things that, I might, and like I said, it can be literally one thing that you did one time, this, going to Starbucks for your team. That can be the story. Or it can be, yes, I worked for 6 months on a project at an NGO, and at the end of it, I achieved this. That can also be the story. But it doesn't have to be. So a lot of students get very stressed out that, I haven't done anything. What am I going to write about it in my essay? Your essay isn't about having done anything. Like I said, that can be captured in other parts of your application or not. But everyone has daily life and daily experiences and family and culture and different things that they can talk about in their different ideas that they can brainstorm for their Common App essay. Once you kind of decide on a few topics a few topics from that brainstorming that you think, this might make a good essay, then you can think about what's the theme of this essay. So I want to write about a basketball game that my team won, and that was a big deal for me. So why is that important? Is it just because you won and you felt good? Like, what's the theme? What am I going to know about you if you tell me that story? And think about that, and then decide if that's a good story to choose, okay? And then show, don't tell in step 3. It means that you cannot just go through the essay and say, I did this happened, and that makes me collaborative. You just show me, what did you do? How did you ask people? How did you engage? When you won the basketball game, how did you inspire people? You can't say, that basketball game was super important to me because I felt like I was able to inspire the team and we won. But how did you inspire them? What did you do? How did you think about the process? So just tell me the stories that help me see you doing what you claim is the theme of the story. Does that make sense? So I'll get to some examples, but the point is just that there's a lot of steps involved in this storytelling, and it's a big part of the essay, and it cannot be sort of skipped. And I read an essay yesterday that was like, here's my world, here's all the things that are interesting about it, here's what I've learned from it, and therefore I really value diversity. But I didn't see this person valuing diversity. I just saw a lot of things that happened to her. So she needs to show me, when I then did something else, when I was in a particular situation, because I value diversity, I did something different, or I saw something in a unique way. So I need to see that to understand and believe your story, right? And then moving on to step 4, which is, again, highlight your characteristics and values. So that is, that's whatever those themes are and the ways that the stories tell them, they need to come out, again, don't just be descriptive. Tell me what you're talking about. Why are you telling me this in the language of, these are, I think we saw it here. I can execute and come up with a solution, or I care about the well-being of other people. Those are the characteristics and values that the stories need to show, okay? And then get feedback. This is really important because I think we see so many students, firstly, you are so busy, you have so much going on, and the timelines are very tight on these essays, and we see students who are just like, okay, I just wrote my essay in a week and I'm done, and I don't want to show it to anyone because I can't work on it anymore. Get feedback from your teachers, from your parents, from your friends, anybody, and even if they come back with a simple change, that's fine. If they come back with a big change, take it into account, decide if you can work on it, and get feedback from people who know you, because they may also say, I don't think this is really showing me the best you that I've seen. I've seen you in many situations, and this essay tells me a story that is kind of generic. It doesn't bring out your, qualities in a way that I find really strong. And I think that's can be hard to then, change the essay and shift to showing, you in a way that other people understand you. But it is hard, but you have to do it, which is why you have to start the essay early, right? So don't leave all this to the last minute. Give yourself time to take the feedback and work on it that you get from other people. And I think anyone here from my team who's worked on essays with students can attest to the fact that last minute work is just it's not successful. I mean, we see students who work at the last minute and they don't work to their potential. It's not that they don't get into college anywhere, they do, but could they have maybe done better? Possibly. So last minute work is really, really detrimental to the overall application process. And you're just doing yourself an injustice. If you've spent 4 years and working on your academics in school, working on your extracurricular activities, and you don't work on the essays, you've really just kind of sabotaged all that other hard work, right? If your essays are not up to par, they're not showcasing you in the best way. So do give it as much attention and time as you have given to all those other things for so many years. All right, so that's the Common App essay. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the why essay prompts. So as we said, not all colleges have this. Many do. There's different kinds of why questions that the colleges will ask. So that can be, why do you want to come to this university, right? So then you need to do lots of research, a lot of research, and a lot of I think finding different and interesting sources about a university that that you can add to your application that is like that is unique and different. Because if everybody just goes to the website and says, I want to apply to Georgia Tech because of a great football team and the weather's good. I mean, that's true for everybody, right? Cannot be your reason for coming because it's everybody's reason for coming. So you need to do really deep research about the university, how it relates to you, your interest, your unique sort of what you want to bring to the college, what you want to get out of the college. So that's a very detailed and time-consuming process. So do give yourself a lot of time to do that. When it comes to, the next one might be, why do you want to study the major that you've chosen, right? I want to study biology, or I want to study business. Talk about the things you've done. What have you learned about business or biology, whether in school, whether in extracurriculars, whether if you've not done any of those things, then why are you interested in it? What is the experience you had that has made you decide this is the thing you want to study? And I think, again, a lot of students get stressed. It's like, I don't know what I want to study, right? I want to study something that gets me a good career in the end, but I don't know what that is, and I like many subjects, right? So then how do you write the essay on why don't you know what you want to study? That's a hard one, right? So if you are planning to apply undecided, do not take that as an opportunity to say, I don't know, and I'll figure it out later. That's not what undecided means. Undecided means I have many interests, right? I really like biology. I've also taken English classes. I love literature. And I'm also very passionate about the environment through my extracurricular activities. So maybe then you say, I want to look at the way that nature and the natural world, so there's biology, has been portrayed in literature, so there's English, to help us understand the way people interact with, sort of messages about ecology or sustainability. So then you've got your extracurricular interests. So you've then told me a lot about why you don't know yet what you want to study, because you have these different interests that you're trying to put together in a particular way. So think about that as, when you think, it's fine, but then think about what are you at least interested in, okay? Why essay question might relate to what you want to do after college. What's your career goal? And again, you may not have one, but you may have had experiences that help you think through the question of, what might make sense for you, where you want to be in the future, and also, where your strengths are. So there are a lot of things you can bring into this question as well. Tell us about an intellectual experience, project, class, or book that has influenced or inspired you. I think this is an actual essay prompt, isn't it? But anyway, that's another why or what question that you had. So these are just examples of different kinds of questions that are asked in the US admissions process, which what I'm really trying to point out here is that there's not just one kind of essay. It's not like you can approach US colleges with, I'm applying to 10, it's kind of all going to be the same. Some will ask this, some will ask that. They're very different. And so the way that you have to prepare is, kind of being very flexible, nimble, thinking about your stories that you can relate them in different ways to different questions, because there are a lot of different questions. Okay, I'm going to move on to other supplemental prompts. This is just more examples. Describe one extracurricular activity. So here, Babson College asks you to briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities in 250 words. Whereas Harvard asked you in 150 words, but it's a very similar question. So you can use the same information, you just have to shorten it for one and keep it longer for the other. This happens a lot. So the good thing is you don't have to write 2 essays. But one of the things about this is it's not a description of your extracurricular activity. It's not, tell me about how many times you practice on the football team every week and how many years you've done it for. It's like, why is it important to you? Why has it shaped you? Why has it been a part of, me understanding who you are? How has it shaped you? How has it been an important thing that why has it been an important thing that you've continued doing all these years? So just remember that these are not straightforward questions. They're questions that are asking you, what's your favorite, what's an extracurricular activity that has been important to you and why? Okay, so it's not just what was it, it was how did it impact you, how did it make you who you are, why do you want to keep doing it? And again, colleges are asking you these questions not just to test you and make you do a lot of work. They want to understand what are you like in, not everyday life, but over a period of time. What are you committed to and why? And will you be, because they want students on their campus that are committed to certain things for particular reasons. So they're looking for those kind of questions. And I think that is something to really keep in mind when you're looking at US universities with all these different application questions. Those questions really do reflect kind of the character of the university. And this comes to this, that leads me to this question, which several colleges ask, which is about community. And different colleges ask this question in different ways. But what it kind of tells you is that a college that asks me a question about community or where I come from or what contribution I can make to the college are very interested in building sort of a collaborative group of people who work together and who bring different strengths to any kind of a situation, right? So that's really tells you something about a university which you may like, or you may like, I don't like that. I'm a loner. I don't feel strongly connected to any community, and so this may not be a college I want to apply to. It could end up that way. So these are just examples. Rice has a question about community. Oh, sorry. I'm going in the wrong direction. Rice has a question about community. And that is because they have a very, very strong residential college system, which means that a student comes into their university, is assigned to a college, and is in that college for 4 years with the same people and does everything in that college, everything. Okay, from eating to recreation to living to not studying. Academics is outside the college, but they want to know that you are interested in being in that kind of a community setting, okay? So Rice is asking that question. Yale has a similar arrangement in their colleges, and they ask a similar question, okay? University belongs to different communities, sorry. Everyone belongs to different communities or groups defined by shared geography, religion, ethnicity, income, cuisine, interest, race, ideology, or intellectual heritage. Choose one of the communities to which you belong and describe that community and your place within it. A lot of students firstly get worried about this. I don't really identify with any community, but we've seen students take really creative approaches to this question. So it can be, I think we had a student who was from Hong Kong and she wrote about how she is part of a noodle club, a noodle lovers club. And so, there's community can be anywhere. And so I think you really need to kind of dig a little, sort of deep into what you spend your time on, who else spends your time on that, how does that represent a community? Okay, so we do a lot of discussion with students back and forth, like, is that really a community? Is it not? Why is it? Why would it not be? And we get there. But, there's also people who approach this in a very straightforward way. I'm a Jane, I'm a Cindy, I'm a Mumbaiker, or whatever. So there's many different approaches to this. Some are very straightforward and people know exactly who they are, and others get a little more creative. So when it comes to these kinds of questions, again, like I said, just think about what is this, do other research on the college and their concept of communities and community, and see, why might they be asking you this question? Okay, I'm going to move on now to the UK. I flipped through the slide like 3 times. Okay, the UK personal statement, as I kind of pointed out in that first grid that showed all the colleges, is quite simple. There's only one. So in the UK, everyone who applies to college in the UK can only apply to 5 colleges, okay, or universities or programs. In fact, yeah, programs. So what that means is that every university sees the same essay, okay, the same personal statement. And the way that the US college application essays are they can be very personal, and they're asking you about yourself, what kind of a person are you, what will you bring to our college. The UK isn't really looking for that information. They're asking you pretty straightforward information about who you are, why are you interested in pursuing this course, that is a major, what have you done that has prepared you to pursue this? And what are your interests and extracurricular activities, and how do they relate to what you want to do in the future? And what is any work experience, core skills that you might have that would make you successful here? And then, your conclusion about maybe what you want to do in the future or why you want to study in the UK. It's very, very step by step. And if anyone is interested in studying in the UK, I strongly encourage you to go to the UCAS website. UCAS, UCAS, is the website that you use to apply to colleges in the UK, and they have a guide for personal statements. It's very straightforward, and if you follow their guide, you will get it written it sort of writes itself if you answer the questions in their guide. So it's 4,000 characters, it's 47 lines and 600 words, so that's approximate. But you have to sort of work within these pretty tight guidelines, and then it should be about 70% of why you want to study the major or the course you've chosen, and 30% what are your skills and knowledge that have prepared you for it. And that is it. You don't have to write about your community. You don't have to write about a theme that shows your characteristics. It is not a personal it says it's a personal statement actually, but reflective about your experience in your life. Okay, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about it. Hold on just a second. Okay, yeah. Before I come here, I just want to say that the personal statement is, when we say what have you done academically? So if you say I want to study economics, you need to then say something about what it is that you've done in your academics or your extracurricular activities. Let's say MUN, for example, relates well to economics, that have prepared you and firstly have sort of motivated you to want to study economics, and secondly have prepared you. So when it comes to economics, what do you know in math that's prepared you? What do you know in other sort of economic theory that's prepared you? So you need to talk about very academic things in this personal statement, so that a university wants to know, have you understood the course in such a way that you'll come and do well? Because if you write, I haven't studied economics, I'm really good at math, and I think it's interesting how how economics controls a lot of things that happen in the world, and that's why I want to study it. Like, I don't know that you really actually understand what economics is and how hard it is to study and what are the sort of nitty-gritties of getting through a course in economics, right? So you need to talk about things that you've read, faculty you've interacted with in your school or elsewhere, projects you've done. And so if you haven't done things related to your major or the course that you want to study in the UK, you need to step back and think, am I really prepared for this course, right? And if you haven't done those things and you feel that you still want to do it, then you have to ask yourself, how do I get there, right? How do I either take the things I've done and make them sort of work for this course? How do I find another course that matches better what I've done? And how? So this is an exercise also in kind of getting yourself to understand whether it's the right course you've chosen or not. So, I mean, and that's really what the college is looking for. And they can get to the end of the personal statement and you may be the best student and have the highest score in your school, but if you haven't convinced them that you've chosen the right course or major for yourself, then you've not succeeded in the personal statement and you will probably be unsuccessful in the application. And we do see students who get who will be unsuccessful, and then they get feedback and the college will say, your personal statement didn't seem like a fit for the course. So you need to be very aware that the personal statement in the UK is really about demonstrating your fit for the course. That's all it is, okay? But having said that, it has to at least be, it needs to be unique, not generic. So these are some very cliched and generic and unimaginative starting points for UCAS personal statements. And I mean, it's kind of common sense that you shouldn't use these, but if you notice, a lot of them start with a long time, right? For the longest time, ever since, always been, always wanted, always been. You are only 17. You've not done anything forever. Like, it needs to be a lot more clear and specific about how you got to this interest and desire. Because if you just say, I've always wanted to do this, or a classic, then it's like, always why? Like, were you born this way? Like, what happened? So that doesn't really tell me specifically about how you develop this interest. So be very specific about how you develop the interest, whether it's through a story that, I want to study psychology because when I went to my friend's house last year and she couldn't get out of bed, I realized that, there's a huge problem among young people and with mental health. So though it's a pretty common story, it's at least a very specific story about how you started looking into psychology and mental health, okay? And similarly, what's very common, and we see it all the time, is my parents are doctors. That's why I want to be a doctor. My parents are in business. That's why I want to study business. It's not really a reason. It's a fact and it's a circumstance, but it's not a reason. So you need to move beyond that. And maybe later in the process, you can say, having, seen my father and my uncles run a family business, I understand, how important it is to know about finance or something like that. And then you've kind of indicated that you come from a family that has, has given you some perspective on this. But the idea that you want to do it because everyone else in your family does it isn't very specific either. So try to avoid these very common and very sort of generic introductions to your personal statement. And if it helps you to start with these, then start with them. But remember, you need to remove them by the final draft and really talk very specifically about yourself and the course. Okay. I'm going to move on now. And again, there's lots and more to say about all these things. I'm trying to get through several countries. So at the end, if you have more questions, I'm happy to talk more about them. I'm happy to also give you more examples of what's been successful. And we can get into sort of more specifics. When it comes to Canada, it's interesting because I've been doing this for so long. And I used to always say, oh, Canada's fine. You don't need essays for Canada. And then I realized that Canada always says that. If you start researching on Canada, they'll say, no essays required for application. But actually what ends up happening is those essays kind of they trickle in, or they're here and there. So you do really need to pay attention and be aware about Canadian university essays. When they have them, they're usually, like I said here, like they sort of trickle in. So though you may fill out the whole application and send it, right? And once you've sent it, they'll send it back and say, oh, because you're applying for this major, you need to do this essay. So then the essay, so then there is an essay, but you didn't know it until you've already submitted it. So remember, just keep, talk to people who've applied in the past, talk to your school counselors, talk to us. We know which colleges have essays, but you may not know that from the start, okay? So they are a little focused, it depends on the essay actually. They can be focused on your character or your extracurriculars or your major. So it depends on why they're asking, which program's asking you for the essay and what they want to know. It can, and depending on the program or the university, there could be up to 6 essays. And this is important. Universities such as University of Toronto and UBC have video essays. And this is very Canadian thing. They're the ones who started it. Other colleges do it now, but it started in Canada. They're typically on the spot and timed. And so once you may submit your application, you may not have to write an essay, but a video link will come back to you and say, you need to do it on the spot video essay. So then you're asked a question and then the timer sort of starts and you answer the question verbally, and that's submitted to the college. And again, the questions aren't necessarily known ahead of time to you, but I think there are some samples that you can practice and things like that, but that's something that you need to think about if you're interested in the Canadian process, that several programs will have video essays. And then a few prompts, I'll just go through some examples here. So University of Toronto, what draws you to Victoria College, and how do you plan to contribute to the community and learning at the college? Please also include your academic goals and aspirations. So that's a very straightforward question. And it sounds like it's short, actually, 2,000 characters. It sounds like a mini personal statement from the UK. So if you've also applied to the UK, you could use pieces of it here. But my point is just that that's very specific to Victoria College at the University of Toronto. So you have to stay on top of this, understand which colleges are going to ask you, which universities are going to ask you questions and for which majors, and be prepared for that. UBC has what they call, I think they're like personal insight questions or something like that. And they're I think 4 short questions: who you are, how would your family and friends or members of the community describe you? If possible, please include something about yourself that you are most proud of and why. And so this question, and I think it's one of 4 that you have to answer for University of British Columbia, but they are one of the universities that has these 4 questions for all applicants. So again, just something to know. It's very, very possible to apply in Canada that require no essays, but you need to figure it out ahead of time. You can't just assume that the program you're applying for doesn't have essays. It may have, but it may not. So, for example, McGill has no essays. I don't think they have essays for any program. So if that's your goal, to write 0 essays, you might want to look at those colleges. India, okay, so as we know, India has, in the last 5 to 10 years, several very good liberal arts universities have emerged on the scene in India. Now, the essay process and the application process overall is much more similar to the US process. The essays tend to be personal. They want to hear stories about you. They want to know who you are as a person. There's a very intensive interview process for most of these colleges. And like I said, they're looking at the application holistically, much more like the US, okay? And as a result, we have these kinds of personal questions. Ashoka University has these 3 questions. One is a little bit more academic, right? What is an idea, concept, or theory you find interesting and why? In what ways have you examined or engaged with this topic? So that sounds like a piece of the UK personal statement. The second one, share with us an important personal experience which has significantly shaped you and your perspectives on life. Provide relevant details to help us understand you. That's a personal question. Who are you? This is more like a community essay, right? Where do you come from? Who are you? What are you like? What are you going to bring to the college? And the third one is, again, something you might see in the US. The language of a person influences their understanding of the world. Pick your favorite word from any language and tell us why this word is special to you and how it has impacted you. So that's something where you get to be a little creative, right? You can imagine someone using a word from a language nobody knows, or a language they've made up with their sibling, right? I mean, this could be quite interesting and creative. Or you could just say, at home we speak Hindi, and here's a word I love, okay? And here's why. So, I mean, that's a more straightforward approach. Here at Korea University has always asked this question: what is your personal story, and how would studying at Korea help you become the person you want to be? So it's again a bit of why our college, why this major, and who are you, all mixed up into one, and 750 words. So it's quite long. Something you need to know about the Indian liberal arts colleges. Besides these, which you have to submit with the application, you are also required to do on-the-spot essays. So when you go for the interview, they will ask you to sit and write an essay, write an answer to an essay, which is not usually a big deal, and it's quite interesting and unique, but it's very important to understand, firstly, just to be prepared for it if you are called for the interview, but secondly, to realize that you need to write your own essay. If you're getting someone else to do your work, or you're getting your parents to overpolish your essay, or your older sister is, and it sounds totally different to what you write in person at Ashoka, you will have a problem, okay? That's just a word of warning. So we definitely don't recommend getting excessive inputs on your Ashoka or other Indian liberal arts college essays, because you need to they need to be able to match it with your on-the-spot essay. Okay, so that's all the country essays I'm going to talk about today. If you have questions about any others, I'm happy to answer. But overall, there's some do's and don'ts that you can use, and this I tried to give an overview of how the different country essay processes are different, and you may have to write more or less, more personal, more academic, this, that. There's all of these things which are different in different countries, but these are the things that are kind of common. So make sure that whenever you're sort of writing essays, be clear, don't write complicated sentences, be direct, and practice. If you're not in the year of application this year, right now, start writing as a practice every single day, and just get used to it, because it's a lot of writing you have to do in the application process. And most students aren't used to it. They're like, okay, I had to write one paper all year. That's not a habit of writing. You need to be in the habit of writing. That will make this process much, much easier. And just, think about how to be concise with your words. Be very, and I'm just saying this because this is true in any kind of writing, whether it's, writing emails, whether it's in your job later, whether it's in these essays. If you can see a way to shorten and make things clearer and more direct, always do that. Nobody needs you to be flowery and difficult and complex. It's just, like I said, 90 seconds. I want to know very clearly, what are you telling me? So here are some examples. Speak in an active voice over a passive voice. You are the subject. So strong leadership is paramount to the success of any collection of individuals. That sentence, oh my God, is like a complete, just says nothing. It's just a sort of throwaway sentence. I believe I have those qualities evident through my internship work, okay? So then I intend, the sort of revision of this, I interned at a think tank over the summer and was awarded recognition for successfully leading a team of 5 interns into project completion ahead of schedule. So this is not only active, it is also in the advice of show, don't tell. It's showing me how you have the qualities that you claim you have, right? What did you do, and how do I see you sort of demonstrating those qualities? So this is more concise, it's more active, and it's more, it gives me more detail. It's not generic, right? And then here's a second example. Review your work to see where a phrase can be substituted by a simple word. I think this is a great example. I could not and still can't believe that. And the second one is, I am astounded. It's the same, it is the same meaning, and you can usually, this is why a lot of writing coaches say never use adverbs, right? So I walked slowly is an adverb. I walked slowly to my desk, or so then you could just say I what's a word for walked? One word that means walked slowly, like I sauntered to my desk, right? So you don't need the adverb. You can find a word that means, you can find a verb that says the same thing. And don'ts are, this is really important. And this is one of the things I want to say now that I said all this about how complicated everything is and how important it is it's also not something you need to get paralyzed by. Don't go crazy that I don't have the perfect essay. And is this essay standing out? Is this essay jumping off the page? You have to get it done. Start and finish. That's the main thing you have to do with your essays, okay? If you cannot start, then do some exercises that help with that, like free writing, where you just give yourself 10 minutes and you can write anything on a page, but you cannot stop writing, whether it's typing or whether it's writing with the pencil. That's a really good way to just make yourself start. So there's a lot of exercises that can help you get through writer's block if that's stopping you. And I think, avoid jargons and cliches. Your own voice is more original to the AO. So this, starting your essay with a Steve Jobs quote, and then nobody cares everybody knows what Steve Jobs said. They want to know what you say in the essay. They want to hear your story. So don't use that kind of in an introduction because you think it's catchy. It might inspire you to start writing, but your reader doesn't actually need to see it. And then don't plagiarize or copy. Don't be general in your observation. Direct them inward. So this is quite interesting. Medicine is a noble cause, and I have been inspired by my brother's journey through the vocation. So medicine is a noble cause is sort of a generic statement, like why do you believe that? Who would not believe that? Okay. The second one is much more to the point. Demonstrates to me much more what you actually mean. So when I saw how the medics treated the survivors of the blast, an emotional trigger rung through me. Their compassion and clarity of purpose urged me to take action as I stood up to volunteer myself. So I can see why you think it's noble and what you did about it, okay? Then don't state, imply, and this we see all the time. I have been passionate about engineering since I was a child. So again, you have the passion, you have since I was a child, always and forever, I was never different, which I don't know why I should believe all this. But when you tell me that, since dismantling my first toys at an early age, I've been compelled to discover how objects work. So I can see that you've been doing this for a long time. What exactly do you mean by passionate about engineering? And it gets me sort of interested in who you are as a person. So these are some don'ts that we can say. But the biggest one, I think, I want to just say a little bit more about it is, and I think it's become a slight obsession with students and a cause of a lot of anxiety, that your essay needs to be, something that can ruin your application, that can be so bad or so good that it makes or breaks things. That is not the case. Your essay has to be good. You have to give it time. You have to work on it. You cannot not take it seriously. You must, give it all the sort of importance that is due. But I have, in all these sort of college essay application, sessions, webinars, talks, videos, podcasts that I've listened to, every admissions officer says, we love great essays. When we get a great essay, we're excited. But we then have to look at the rest of the application. It's not like we can then admit that student just because they were charming in their essay. So that's one thing. But at the same time, if you look at the majority of students who are admitted, even to highly selective universities, their essays are slightly above average. They're not like masterpieces. And that's not expected. It's expected that they get to know who you are as a person. And that is the most important thing. And that's why you should give this time, so that you're communicating that, not so that you're, Hemingway. That's not the point of spending time on the essays. So the point is just that, you need to be able to make sure you're telling your story well and telling it in the best way possible, but don't get obsessed and spend so much time stressing about, whether, this sentence or that sentence or this word or, these kinds of things. Just it's okay. That's fine. And like I said, if you are applying for, to be a major in poetry or journalism, then maybe you need to demonstrate a little higher level of writing. But otherwise, your writing can be at whatever it is for you. And if you are creative and you're funny or you're any of those things, then of course, try to demonstrate that. Try to communicate that in your essay in terms of the style and the tone and all those things. But don't worry about doing that if that's not you. Okay, so these are the things that I think get students and their parents very stressed. This happens all the time, that we will work with a student on an essay. The student's really happy about the topic. They've worked hard. We've given our inputs. Everyone has sort of collaborated to make this, their story, their best essay. And somebody comes back, Uncle so-and-so from who knows where. This is not really jumping off. This is not really attention grabbing. I'm just like, what does attention grabbing mean? Don't obsess over what is attention grabbing, because that's not the point, right? The point is, did this student work hard and tell their story well? That's really what you have to do in the essays. And so, while we appreciate all the kind of inputs from all over the world about whether your essay is good or bad, from different relatives and people who are well-wishers, it may not be the most helpful piece of input at that time when a student feels done, when they feel like I did my best and this is my story. So keep that in mind and try not to kind of over sanitize and over kind of polish your essays to a point where it doesn't even sound like you, that it sounds like, your aunt who's a literature professor in England, right? That's not who it should sound like. It should really sound like you as a 17-year-old student sitting in India. So that's kind of the overall general do's and don'ts of essays. And I guess I'm ready for questions now if anyone has them either here in the room or online. And specifically, if anyone has questions about essays that I didn't cover, like countries or, examples or different of countries that I did cover. Krishma, are there any online? No. Okay. Good. I also wanted to say that once we're finished here, there's a lot of Red Pen team members around. If you have questions for them about essays, about anything else in the application process, we're all here to answer questions, and we can stay after the session. It doesn't look like we have questions.
Questions?
Okay, so we don't have questions, is what I guess.
What are examples of good essays?
Sorry?
Can you give few examples of good essays? Right, Prishma? Yeah.
A few examples of good essays from which countries? Any? Okay. I mean, we have examples of good essays. I mean, again, I don't want to say one essay is, sort of good or bad. And like I said, we see students who don't have great essays or amazing essays get into great or amazing colleges. Their essay may have been very, very good and good enough, but maybe not like astonishing. I think we had a student a few years ago who wrote a very creative and very interesting essay, and she got into a really good college about, if anyone here is from UWC Pune, or maybe online, she wrote about some hill run that people do at that school. And she related different parts of that run and different rabbits that run around the hill and different sort of obstacles and reasons for doing it that related to, her character as facing challenges, doing things that that were out of her comfort zone and things like that. But the way that she did it was very creative in terms of just, using this hill as the metaphor for kind of life in general. And I think that was a really good essay because it involved, something that was very personal to her. It demonstrated, interesting qualities about her, and it also, was creative because I just remember there was a rabbit in it. She kept chasing this rabbit, so it was creative and funny. And so that's one other thing that admissions officers often do say is they say, I heard this recently on a podcast where the admissions officer said, people think they need to write some really emotional stories. So she said the number one thing that I really don't want you to do is make me cry in your essay. She said, if it's so good and emotional that it makes me cry, maybe you wrote a good essay, but I don't want to cry, right? She said, if I did that all day, my job would be super depressing. She said, I love essays that make me laugh. I love essays that are refreshing and interesting. And think about that. And I think it's important. There are different approaches to what you want to write. Some people feel that, it's really important in your Common App essay to write about, to somehow touch on either a trait or a characteristic or an activity you did that relates to the major you want to study. So, that can really sort of work in your favor. I think we had a student this year who wrote a very strong essay about, how it was sort of like this, I've been tinkering or working with things in a very sort of curious way for many years. And he wrote that essay, and actually I said, I think that this essay is going too far back into his childhood. I want to see him, maybe 15 years old is as far back as he should go. He shouldn't go all the way back into childhood telling me a story about science fair. So we went back and forth about whether that was the right approach. He eventually wanted to keep it in, he kept it in, and he was very successful. So again, it's not that he was successful because he kept that in, but that definitely didn't keep him out. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think we, if you listen to lots of information about essays and essay writing, you'll hear, that's a don't. Don't write about things that happened to you when you were 5 years old. But he did it, and he got into a great college. So nothing is really that hard and fast. It actually has to all come together, I think is the point. It can't, so many admissions officers say, oh, there's all these topics that the kids always write about, like, the big game that we won, or the big game that we lost, or the parents' divorce, or the things that are very common among people of this age. And they say, don't write about that because we hear it all the time. But then we see students who write about that and they get into college. So there are these kind of general rules, but if that's your story or that's something you really want to say, it's okay to write about. I think there are some things that, again, like I said, making the admissions officer cry is bad, unless there's a really good reason. But I think things like, we have seen, essays that are a bit sad and just talk about a difficulty without, there's no kind of sunshine in it. That's not a great approach. About a struggle or a challenge you've had is okay, but let's move on from that very quickly. And I think, just to come back to this topic that I mentioned earlier, I had a student the other day tell me that she wanted to write her Common Up essay about her mental health struggles and how that got her interested in psychology. And I said, that's great, and I'm glad that you've overcome it, and now you want to sort of support other people. But I don't think it's a story that you really want to tell in your college application, just because it's very common. And I think everyone who's in the same age category, and I'm not trying to kind of minimize anybody's experience, but lots and lots of every person at this age, this is an age where you go through a lot emotionally and with friendships and parents, and that it's not something that is unique to you, and it's not really going to tell me anything about you that helps me necessarily see you succeeding at college. So maybe don't talk about that topic is one piece of advice I would, unless you, like I said, you have a really good reason. Okay, next question.
Do we have to use complicated English words and vocabulary rather than simple English?
No, I think that's here. Be direct and get straight to the point. You do not stay clear of complex sentences. So you do not have to write in flowery language. You do not have to use big words. You do not have to use a thesaurus. I would say, and this is what I correct a lot in essays, that people use, I would say what's the word I'm looking, be precise with your words. So don't keep using the word interested in your essay. I'm interested in this, and I got interested in this because I found it really interesting that other people work on similar questions, but they're not interested. I'm like, you've used the word interest 5 times in a paragraph, right? So look for things like that, which are just repetitive, and also that are catch-all, like, yeah, maybe interesting and interested is a very sort of wide, what is interested? Like you specifically did something about it. How did it get your attention? Like so there are words that people use that are kind of like, they're not so meaningful. Passion is another one. I'm very passionate about this. Passionate, interested. So generic words that aren't, if you're using a lot of those, then ask yourself, what am I really trying to say? And maybe there's an opportunity for you there to use or make a, this is a show don't tell moment, right? Yeah, okay, so the show don't tell, I got it right. A show don't tell moment, maybe there's a story you can tell me that helps me see interested in more dimensions than just interesting or passionate. Okay, so I think you don't have to use big words or fancy English, but you need to be clear and concise. Yes?
For students who will start grade 11, when is the good time for them to start doing essays?
So students who have another year before their application needs to be submitted, I think the best time actually is to start, I mean, like I said, the best thing to do if you are the kind of person who really wants to work ahead, just start writing essays. There's no harm in that. Start looking at the essay topics, writing them, because it's an exercise. Again, it becomes a habit, it becomes easier. This year you say, I'm gonna just tomorrow afternoon write a community essay. Let's see what I come up with. Do that twice. And then when the time comes for you to write a community essay next year, you've done it before, right? Most students have never written any essays like this before. And so having to do it for the first time under time pressure with deadlines is not a great, it's not great conditions for producing good work. So you can start with just the practice and the habit of writing essays and being reflective, whether it's through a journal, whether it's through a kind of book of, whether it's the actual essay prompts that you want to write down, or whether it's some other kind of exercise that gets you to kind of write reflectively. I think that's a good habit to start now. And when it comes to when you should actually write your Common App essay, I think if you can get it done, it needs to be finished by around August of your 12th grade, okay? But that's finished, and depending on how long, we tell students to start thinking about it as early as January of the year that you're applying. But it has to be finished by August, okay? Because if you wait beyond that, then all your work backs up, and you have so many other essays to write, especially for the US process, that and your schoolwork and everything, that August, sort of draft, if it's fixed, then you can move on to other things. I think, I don't know where, I shouldn't even mention this, but we have a book. The Redmond has a book that is called Write Now, W-R-I-T-E, and it's every page of that book has a prompt on it. It has a question. So it can be like, talk about your favorite childhood memory. Talk about a vacation write about a vacation that you took in childhood. Or on another page, it'll just say, do you have write about your relationship with your parents. So this book, every page has something to write on it. It's just a book of prompts to write about. So if you can get a hold of that book, I don't know, maybe you can contact us and we can send it to you. It's just a thin notebook that has all these kind of writing exercises on it. And I think that's a great way for 11th graders to kind of get started with the process of writing if they want to be in the habit by the time they have to write their essays. We don't have any of those books here today, right? No, I guess not. Where did they go in the pandemic? I don't know. Yes. It can be the average number of essays that student writes to apply to the US. It really actually depends on what colleges you choose. But in average, I would say, on average, I would say it's about probably 30. Yeah. Because a student typically applies to 10 to 15, each college has an average of 2, some have 0, some have 5, So average of 2, let's say, maybe 30 is an underestimate, but what I'm trying to say is whether it's 30 or 40, some of the material can be reused. So if there's, why do you want to study math in 4 different colleges, your answer is pretty much the same. You just kind of have to get it to the right word count and use the same information. So it's more or less, so that may be 40 unique essays, but 40 essays in total, but unique essays maybe only like 15. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, more like 15 because there are all these kind of anywhere from 10 to 15. I would say unique essays. Any other questions? No. Okay, I think we can break for just sort of people have specific questions or situations that they want to discuss. And am I forgetting to announce anything?
No.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. And I hope this has been sort of helpful to all of you to get a sense of what's involved in the process. And please let us know how we can help you. Thank you. Thank you. Sure. It was great to see you. Oh, I still have the microphone on.